Welcome to God Loves the LGBTQ plus community. Hi, I'm Pastor Chester Hitchcock, and this video is about how we can identify the character of a leader by how they treat people who are LGBTQ plus. I have titled this video, MAGA Leaders in the LGBTQ plus community. But that's just the short title. The full title is When Leaders Are Bullies Instead of Protectors. How LGBTQ people are being treated reflects the kind of leadership we reward in society. While the Bible describes different types of leadership, including kings and patriarchs, prophets and apostles, elders and more, the most prominent type of leadership from Genesis to Revelation is that of a shepherd. Unfortunately, the Western style of shepherding is quite different from that of the Bible times or even the style that is used now in the Middle East. You see, in Western culture, shepherds follow the sheep and herd them like one would herd cattle or horses, and they generally use dogs that bark and nip at the sheep to get them going in the right direction or if they get away from the flock. But in the Middle East, even as far back as the biblical record, the shepherd didn't follow the sheep. The shepherd was a true leader. I can give a personal example of this. Many years ago, I used to have horses. And one time I was out horseback riding, and a neighbor out the road farther than where I lived, his sheep had gotten out, his fence was broken down. So I stopped and knocked on the door and I said, "Hey, your sheep have escaped and I've got a horse, I'll help you round them up." And he said, "Oh, you don't use a horse to round up sheep." He said, "Let me show you how you do that." And he walked over and he put his foot on the fence and he pushed the fence down and he called the sheep, and the sheep came running back and jumped over the fence and went back into the field they belonged. Why? Because they knew him as their shepherd, as their protector, as the one who fed them and took care of them. So let's consider the shepherd leadership style. The characteristics of a good shepherd in the Bible times included love and compassion and understanding, acceptance, inclusion, grace, and protection, just to name a few. So obviously the difference between the two types of shepherding, that of the Western style and those in the Middle East and in the Bible, is that one takes the time to build a relationship with the ones that are being led, and the other simply drives or bullies their flock where they want them to go. Sadly, there were leaders in the Bible who were bullies more than they were shepherds. Just as there are leaders today who lead by means of threats and condemnation and bullying. So let's consider the bullying leadership style. After retiring as a pastor of nearly 30 years, I've been working part-time as a substitute school teacher at a middle school. And I'm happy to say that the entire staff of the school is always watching out for those who are getting bullied. And they are proactively standing up against those who are doing the bullying. And those who get caught bullying other children pay a consequence for their behavior. And if they continue to bully, they can receive a school suspension. However, when children witness bullying in leadership, whether it is in the church or in politics, they tend to ignore what the school system is telling them about what true leadership looks like, because they see bullying being rewarded with successful positions and power. Therefore, unless we want our school systems to work into their curriculum a class on how to bully their way to success, we need to rethink who we put in leadership position in both the church and in political offices. Church and government leaders should be selected based on their character, whether they are bullies or whether they are protectors like shepherds. Do they demonstrate love and compassion and understanding and acceptance, inclusion and grace and protection, or are they narcissistic and proud and boastful and arrogant? We may or may not agree with all of the policies of anyone, but if we choose our leaders based upon their character, we know that they will do their best to try to be caring of all of whom they lead. And don't misunderstand me, all human leaders make bad decisions at times, and no one is ever going to please all of the people all of the time. But do they have the character of love and compassion and inclusiveness regarding the people that they want to lead? So let's consider a biblical example. In Genesis chapter 30, Laban asked Jacob to name his wages. as a shepherd. And Jacob said, "Let me go through all your flocks today and remove from them every speckled and spotted sheep, every dark-colored lamb, and every spotted or speckled goat. They will be my wages, and in the future any goat in my possession that is not speckled or spotted, or any lamb that is not dark-colored, will be considered stolen." You can find that in Genesis chapter 30, verses 32 and 33. Laban agreed and the animals were divided. Laban himself separated out the multicolored animal, leaving only the solid white animals for his own flock. The agreement seemed to favor Laban, as the speckled and spotted goats were an exception to the rule. Now let's apply it to our culture. Similar to the story in the Bible, those who are a part of the LGBTQ plus community are an exception, not the rule in our society. In other words, Laban was happy for Jacob to remove the multicolored animals from his flock. It gave him a more pure, all-white flock that he could be proud of. Little did Laban know that God was in favor of Jacob's willingness to be humble and accepting of the minority. As a result, Genesis chapter 30 verse 42 tells us that Laban's flock became feeble, while Jacob's became strong. Listen to Genesis chapter 30 verse 43. "Thus the man," that is Jacob, "became exceedingly prosperous and had large flocks, female and male servants and camels and donkeys." Ironically, an ancient breed of sheep still raised today, which has the distinction of having multicolored fleece. The black and white spotted wool is highly prized for hand spinning and roving. The breed is called Jacob's sheep because some trace its origin to the story of Jacob's selective breeding of sheep in Genesis chapter 30. So what about bullies in the presidential office? First of all, a church denomination that continues to elect and re-elect a president who is arrogant, exclusive, vindictive, and proud should not be surprised when they are losing nearly as many members as they are gaining. On June 16, 2024, an article in Adventist Today titled, "2023 Statistics Show Growth but Also Heavy Losses, Weak Attendance," reveals the truth about the struggles faced in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The author writes, "The membership, that is in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, is far from stable. A substantial number apparently don't find a permanent home in the church. It has been our practice for many decades to celebrate baptisms but ignore retention of baptized members. We prefer not to call attention to our losses." But it's not just presidents in our church denominations. In the Make America Great Again, MAGA mission of President Donald Trump, today's multicolored sheep of God, the LGBTQ plus community, are being bullied by a power-hungry Laban. And instead of making America great again, Trump is making America feeble in the world. Tragically, he is supported by many who claim to be followers of the Bible, but the Bible denounces these kinds of leaders on nearly every page. Fortunately, his actions do not go unchecked. In an article titled, "Protests Erupt at Stonewall After Trump Removes Trans People from the Movement" website, Aaron Reed wrote, "Protests erupted at Stonewall National Monument, the historic site of the Stonewall Uprising that ignited the modern gay rights movement and led to the first Pride celebration in the United States. Demonstrators gathered in response to changes made by the Trump administration to the National Park Service website for the monument. The revisions erased transgender people from several sections of the site, altering LGBTQ plus to LGBTQ plus, before ultimately reducing it to just LGB. Now, of course, this is only one of many acts of bullying by Donald Trump. The United States needs a president who will work towards the important things of bringing down inflation and decreasing the national debt and increasing the job market and improving the respect of the United States among our allies and enemies. But bullying the population with executive orders that try to erase a specific group of people is neither presidential nor helpful to the needs of our nation." With leaders like this, it becomes necessary to resist the bullying in the office. Aaron Reed continues, "The Trump administration's agenda is clear: to systematically erase transgender people from public life, beginning with the very acknowledgement of their existence. When a leader comes to power by demonizing a minority, and one of their first acts is to erase all official recognition of that group, it should be a blaring alarm. This is not just political posturing. It is the groundwork for something far more dangerous, and something that transgender people are intent on resisting." End quote. Well, as an ally for the LGBTQ plus community, making this video is only one of the ways that I choose to resist this kind of evil leader, in our country as well as our church. If Christianity defends a bully in any leadership role, they should not be surprised when they, along with the Christian church and the country, become more feeble. It is time for a new kind of Jacob to rise up and gather the multicolored LGBTQ plus community before it's too late. It's time for the church to welcome transgender people along with the rest of the LGBTQ plus community, realizing that God's flock needs shepherds, not bullies, in leadership. And finally, if the United States is going to survive the next 4 years with a bully that has been elected largely due to the support of so-called Christians, those who understand the gospel need to unite their voices in support of those who are marginalized and trying to be erased by a fascist, narcissist, modern-day Laban who is intent on making America feeble. I hope this video has given you something to think about and the motivation to resist the evil that is being done by leaders who choose to be bullies rather than shepherds. So if this video has been interesting and helpful, give me a thumbs up, and if you have not subscribed to my channel yet, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, and choose all to make sure that you get a notification the next time that a video is produced. I love you all, and God loves you all the more. I'll see you in the next video.